Once upon a time, there lived a beautiful young woman named Mercy. Mercy was not just any woman, she was a wealthy young woman who lived in a very quiet village up the hill. Mercy was extremely wealthy, owning acres of farmland and numerous markets across the region. Mercy loved to live a private life and often spent her days overseeing her businesses and managing her farms. Despite Mercy's wealth, she had no friends and kept to herself. Several women in the village tried to be friends with her, but Mercy was not interested in any form of friendship. One evening, while Mercy was returning home from her market business, she heard a loud cry for help coming from a hut not too far away. Curious as to why someone was screaming for help, she approached the hut and met a woman who was sitting outside, crying. The woman had just been battered by her wicked husband and pushed out of the house to sleep outside. Mercy, noticing her, had compassion for her. Her name was Omar, and she had been married to a violent husband for so many years. Omar had lost 2 pregnancies due to her husband's violence and was unable to leave the marriage because of huge debts that her father owed her husband, which he was unable to pay. Omar was from a very poor family and was forced to marry her husband Ibuka as a way of offsetting the debt that her father owed Ibuka. Her family had no other option as Ibuka insisted on marrying Omar as a form of repayment for the debt that he was owed. That was how Omar was forced to marry Ibuka, who turned her into a punching bag for years. Omar endured her husband's beatings, hoping that he would change, but as the years went by, his beatings grew worse, putting Omar in harm's way. Omar could not leave the marriage because of her family, as she knew they had no money to repay the debt. Mercy, on seeing how battered Omar was, took her home and nursed her wounds. She provided Omar with some food as well as a room to lay her head because it was already getting dark. Omar was so grateful to Mercy for being kind to a complete stranger. She pleaded with Mercy to save her from the hands of her evil husband. Mercy, seeing the pain in her eyes, decided to confront her husband Ibuka the next morning. She offered him a deal he could not refuse, as she repaid the debt that he was owed as well as a huge interest for him to permanently leave Omar and remove any claims over her. Ibuka, without thinking twice, agreed to her offer. Omar was so grateful to Mercy for saving her and offered to do whatever possible to repay Mercy for her kindness. Omar asked if she could work for Mercy, and Mercy agreed and gave her a job in one of her factories. She worked so hard, and this impressed Mercy, who decided to give her a huge sum of money to start up her own business. Omar cried tears of joy as she never expected such a huge amount of money from her friend. Through the guidance of Mercy, Omar set up her business successfully and began to make so much money. Mercy was so proud of Omar and all she was able to accomplish. Her heart was gladdened to see a woman who was once at the mercy of her wicked husband flourish despite all odds. Their friendship grew stronger as all the other women in the village envied their friendship and the success they had been able to achieve. After several years, Mercy's business began to struggle. Some of her workers ganged up with her competitors to destroy her business, and soon Mercy's businesses were run to the ground. Mercy was left penniless and was clueless about what to do. She approached her friend Omar to help her with some money to put herself back together, but Omar looked her in the eyes and said that she had no money to give. This was so shocking to Mercy, who knew that Omar had more than enough at the time. Omar's refusal to help struck Mercy like a cold wind on a sunny afternoon. As she knelt there confused and unsure of what to do, Omar then made a proposal to Mercy that shocked her to her bone marrow. She told Mercy to work as her maid for a year, saying that after 1 year, she would give Mercy a huge sum of money which she could use to get herself back on track. Mercy froze in shock as she could not believe that Omar wanted her to work as her maid. She could not believe that a woman who she had once helped had so quickly forgotten the hand that lifted her from despair. Mercy's heart was so heavy as she had sold all that she had, including her houses, to salvage her failing business, but still, it wasn't enough. She had no money left and was left with no other option than to accept her friend's offer to be a maid in her home. She saw no wrong in servitude and believed that someday she would rise again. So Mercy revealed to Omar that she would be her maid for 1 year. Mercy began to work immediately, and Omar, who she thought was her friend, showed her a part of her that she never knew existed. She would yell angrily at Mercy and call her all sorts of condescending names. She even went as far as starving Mercy of food and prohibiting her from sleeping until it was 2 a.m. in the morning. Mercy was in shock at the cruelty of someone she had once considered a dear friend, but she made up her mind to endure. As Mercy served in Omar's house, her humility touched the hearts of the other servants who secretly admired her strength and shared what little they had with her. Word of Omar's harsh treatment began to spread around the village, and the people who had once envied Omar now saw her in a different light. The more they heard of Omar's cruelty, the more their hearts turned away from her, taking their business and their respect with them. They all decided to boycott her business as they could not understand how one could be so wicked as to bite the finger that once fed her. Not long afterward, Omar's business began to feel the weight of the villagers' decision. Despite this, Omar still refused to learn her lesson. One early morning, Omar informed Mercy that she was expecting a very important visitor. She ordered Mercy to clean the whole house and prepare some delicious meals for her visitor. Mercy set out to work as Omar remained in her room, preparing for the arrival of her visitor. After several hours, her visitor arrived, and Omar was so pleased to see him. His name was Mizi, and he was a very rich businessman who took an interest in Omar a few months ago when she was on a business trip outside her hometown. They got along so well, and he promised to pay her a visit. What had happened was that many years ago, Mizi worked for Mercy's family, as they were the richest in their village. Mercy's father was a gold merchant and the biggest in the whole region. His competitors, threatened by his success, poisoned him, killing Mercy's mother in the process. She was the only member of her family alive. Scared that the people who killed her family might come after her too, Mercy ran away from her village with some of her father's gold, which she used to establish herself in the new village that she settled in. For years, Mizi looked for Mercy but could not find her. Her father, a few months before his demise, called Mizi aside and gave him a box of gold, saying that if anything ever happened to him, Mizi should hand the gold over to his family. Mizi, being his most trusted ally, kept the gold in a safe place. When he heard of the death of Mercy's family, he came in search of Mercy, but she was long gone. For all these years, Mizi had kept the gold safe, hoping to find Mercy. When Mercy heard this, tears poured down her eyes as she could not believe how life was about to smile on her again. Omar sat there, shocked, unable to say a word. Her chances of ever marrying Mizi ended before they even started, as Mizi got to find out how she treated a woman who once helped her at her lowest. Mizi, without wasting any time, returned to his village and brought the gold that Mercy's father had entrusted in his care. He gave it all to Mercy, who was so grateful to him for his honesty. She offered him some of the gold, but Mizi refused to be rewarded, saying that Mercy should use the gold to establish herself once again. Mercy was so grateful to Mizi as she rebuilt her life and became even richer than she was before. Omar, however, struggled with her business, which finally crumbled, returning her back to square one. The horrible things that she did to Mercy made it impossible for her to approach Mercy for help, so she left the village in shame, and no one ever heard from her again. That was how Mercy became extremely wealthy again and built several businesses in the village which thrived and prospered. Mercy used her wealth to impact the lives of those around her, including the maids that served with her at Omar's home, who shared the little they had with her. Omar, on the other hand, lived all her life in poverty as she spent her life regretting all her wicked deeds. The lesson to be learned from this story is that we should not bite the hand that feeds us. Never reward one's kindness to you with wickedness because life is uncertain. Treat people with kindness regardless of their social status, as you never know what will happen in the future. If you enjoyed this story, please make sure to click on the like button, share, subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell for more sweet stories like this one.